Okay, we are back with Mike Broihier. Mike is a farmer, a retired Marine, and a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in Kentucky. We just went through his top three political priorities: a just transition to a green economy, access to quality, affordable health care as a right, and universal basic income, living wages, and workers' rights. We're now on to the fun portion where we get to ask some of your questions to Mike. So the first question that I had received here is, what is your position on a housing guarantee or housing reform?
Okay, funny you mentioned that. I it's a huge deal, and it's funny because it's not just housing, but it's transportation, and they're very closely tied. Because it would be cheap to build houses out here in Lincoln County, Kentucky, but there would be no jobs, and so I cannot separate. I can't separate one from the other, but yeah, cheap, affordable, good homes are a high priority with me. I have a lady I'm working with in Bowling Green, Kentucky, who for decades has been a housing advocate. She first started off working housing, and now she's working on other government programs. And she's very kindly volunteered to help me work out my policies. And so she's kind of filled up my inbox with all kinds of references that I have yet to plow through all of them. But just yesterday, I finished my plan for Americans with disabilities.
Hmm.
That's also very closely tied to public housing, because a part of public housing, affordable housing, has got to be access for people with
Yeah.
disabilities. So, not dodging the question, is it's very important, and I'm working on it. And like I said, I've got this really bright lady in Bowling Green who's helped me, just like I had Scott with UBI. Listen, I have no pride of authorship. You know, for me, the difference between plagiarism and scholarship is a footnote. And so I am very happy to work with anybody with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, to help me walk through things that I feel intuitively in my gut, but I'm not able to verbalize in terms that are acceptable and understandable to everyone. So, yes, public access to quality, safe housing is very important to me. I have not yet published a plan, but that is on the way.
Well, I
Did I answer
think
your
that,
question?
yes, you did. And I think that's a very refreshing attitude. Too many people have the ego of it's my solution or the highway. So I'm very happy to hear that. So, Alethea, I hope you had your question answered. The next one I got here was from someone named Hapaxion. His question was, what do you see in terms of voting system reforms? Do you support something like ranked choice voting, approval voting, or score voting?
Actually, um, I kind of like ranked myself, but if we're talking about overall voting reform, funnily in coincidence here with the coronavirus outbreak, is people are talking about mail-in voting
Hmm.
and going 100% mail. And so I was talking to people the other day and about this, and like, oh, well, there's a chance it'll be stolen. But here's the deal: I used to take classified documents, like secret documents, and put them in like two envelopes and drop them off at the post office.
Yeah.
As much as it caused my gut to clench, they take a classified document. But the thing is, the U.S. Postal Service is incredibly efficient. Um, and I've actually been meeting with postal union workers here in Kentucky as the government tries to privatize the U.S. Postal Service. But their efficiency, their accountability is incredibly high. So now we get around the coronavirus, and people are saying, well, why don't we just do mail-in ballots? Okay, and then we have a paper trail. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
these are all
Exactly.
very good things. But when you're talking about the total reform, I do tend to lean towards ranked choice. I think this mishmash of caucuses and staggered primaries is kind of ridiculous, because you get to be like a state like Kentucky, um, and your primary doesn't matter. It it really doesn't matter in most cases, and so it suppresses voter turnout, and you end up getting a dirtbag like we had for our governor last time, where a Republican governor was elected because it was an off year and there was no interest, and it was like the record low voter turnout in decades got us a governor who was a disaster. But I hope I answered your question.
Oh, yes, you did. And I personally am a fan of range voting, but anyone that's advocating for at least ranked choice voting is a huge step in the right direction. So I'm very happy to hear that, as well as the mail-in ballots. So this next question I got was from Alan Garcia. Alan asks, What is your strategy to be able to win over Republicans and unite the country?
Okay, I only have to win over Republicans in Kentucky.
Yes.
So, but that being said, so I mentioned way back at the beginning of the show that I was a newspaper editor here. I wrote a strongly worded letter to the editor of our local newspaper, and he was impressed with my use of the semicolon. And he said, "Hey, why don't you be a reporter?" So I was a reporter for 2 years, and then the editor. And it's the third oldest newspaper in Kentucky, called the Interior Journal. And as the editor of a rural weekly, I wrote an editorial every single week. And as I'm sure you can tell, I've got some kind of progressive ideas. And so I learned, mostly through trial and error, that you can convince. There's that 17% that you're never going to convince over on I think on either end, you know. But the sweet spot, the number of people you need to peel off in the middle to get them to come your way. What I learned is that you've got to be right, but not self-righteous. You've got to take your time, and you cannot talk to people in a way that they think you're trying to make them feel dumb.
Mm.
And that is what I found in my years of reporting and writing editorials here in rural Kentucky. Um, and I've been pretty effective at it. And so when I talk about hot issues like women's reproductive rights, um, background checks for guns here in Kentucky, it's a hard sell. But those are, I support both of those things, and so I have a lot of experience talking to people about it
Yeah.
and delivering the message. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think that is a good approach. Basic common respect goes just a very long way. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, so this next question I have is from David from South Carolina. David asks, "What are your thoughts on Amy McGrath?"
What are my thoughts on Amy McGrath? Um, I liked 2018 Amy McGrath better. I liked the furthest left, most progressive person in Kentucky better than 2020 Amy, who said that she would have voted to seat Judge Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Um, that's that's two different people, and it's a huge change. But like I said, I like 2018 Amy better. So my wife and I, both as Marine officers, we just lived down the road from Lexington, offered help her in 2018, and now I'm running against her. So that should answer your question, I hope.
Yeah, I think that does. Okay, this next question that I have is, what is something that you actually disagreed with Andrew Yang? This comes from Stephen Nagov.
Oh boy, that's a hard one. I might punt on that one
That's
because
fair
I'm
enough.
I'm not a long time. I'm not a long. I'm a recent comer to this, to be honest with you. And so I'm going to punt. Actually,
I
I hope
think
he
that's
doesn't mind. I
fair.
hope he's not disappointed. I'm not going to make something up. Go ahead.
No, I think that's fine, especially when you have someone like Yang who's very message disciplined. You don't end up hearing all the non all agreeable. He does the common sense solutions up front in his stump speeches. Okay, I have one last question here. It comes from a Mike from also New Jersey. He had asked, "What are your thoughts on the remaining candidates: Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Tulsi Gabbard?"
Um, well, I'll say this first. All of my favorites are now no longer in the running. Um, I think I think Tulsi Gabbard is non-competitive, so I'm going to leave her out. And so what is left are two old white guys, and I am going to reserve my choice depending on their vice presidential choices.
Hmm.
And I think it would be smart for both of them to lock down a VP, because that might be what sews up the deal for either side. And I think for both Biden and for Sanders, the sooner they pick a VP, the more likely they will. I think Biden's probably ultimately to win, but I mean, Bernie could shore things up by making a solid pick for VP. And personally, I think that we had a wealth of talent
Yeah.
on that stage. My fantasy question for the debate was: look to your left, look to your right, name your VP and the rest of your cabinet. You know that.
That would
Like
be fun.
and force the candidate to go. Yang and Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and run down the line because there's some qualified people. If you look at the Confederacy of dunces that the Republicans ran last time, I mean we're with a couple of oddballs on stage. I mean Democrats had a solid VP and cabinet right there. I just want to know who they are. I was disappointed that when Sanders, I believe it was Sanders was floating cabinet names, that Yang was missing.
Mm.
I don't know if that, and that was like, really? It seemed like, like, man, that's a solid choice right there. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think we have not had our best choices bubble to the top, but it would be great if we can all have them work together because there was a lot of talent within that field. So that concludes the fan questions that I had for you today, Mike. Thank you so
Okay.
much for answering their questions as well as mine today.
All
Can
right.
you help the Rosebuds out there know how can they help out your campaign? I know maybe there are a couple in Kentucky, but most of them are going to be online. How can they help support you?
Well, two ways. Obviously, the most immediate is going to mikeforky.com, mikeforky.com, and all my issues are there. And also, obviously, a chance to donate through ActBlue. But I will say this about my website is that, I mean, I've had everything out there since August of last year, and people want to talk about other candidates. They've just recently come to the game, but I've clarified a few things, I've changed a few things, but with me, there's no focus grouping, there's no triangulation or messaging. You basically see what you get here, and I hope that you've got that. But going to donating through my website, mikeforky.com is best. But in this time of social distancing that we have, if you like my message, share it with your friends, family, your peer groups via social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc., whatever you use, and say, at least check this cat out. Go to his website. I'm very fortunate. I've got a good video maker who lives locally. The guy should be working in LA or New York. He's cool with Somerset, Kentucky. So there's a couple videos on there that I think people like an awful lot too, locally produced. And so, yeah, man, that's my story. It was great being on your show. And I'll come back anytime you want, man.
Oh, Mike, it was a pleasure having you on. It was very important that we got your truthiness out there today and that we could actually get some people helping you because I know I'm going to be dropping a donation because you hit all my
Uh,
questions out of the park. And I really hope everyone out there does the same because we need someone, A, who can beat Mitch McConnell, but more importantly, once they get in there, they're going to be fighting for the right things.
right. My pleasure being here with you today.
Yes. And before we wrap up, I just want to let the folks out there know some of the stuff we have on the program. You can sign up like Mike did. I know we're not going to have everyone out there be running for the Senate, but we love talking with everyone out there. So come and join. And the sign up sheet is in the description section below. We have our cheat sheet, find everything on our program. We do polls, we do rankings, we do anything you can think of will be in there. And finally, we have our open source policy document, which is essentially, it started as my own policy platform when I was running for Congress, and we opened it up to the public for anyone to be able to edit. It started as 8 pages, we're now at 25, and so I've really valued you all being able to contribute to it so that we have a nice collection of ideas for candidates to be able to pick from going forward. With that being said, comment below what you thought of today's video. Do all the YouTube and podcast stuff, liking and subscribing. And let me know who you want to come on next. Until next time, my friends, I hope you have a great week, and I hope the rosebuds out there stay rosy.